Hello everyone. Uh, in our series of the discussion of mains question answer, today we are going to discuss this question which was asked in 2021 mains paper 1 for 20 marks. Okay, this question says, how has Rawls enriched the idea of justice in liberalism? So first of all, we will try to understand the meaning of this question, that what this question demands in terms of points that we need to write in the answer. Okay, so some of the keywords that we should focus on is enriched. What enriched the idea of justice in liberalism? Alright, so here the examiner wants to know our understanding that how John Rawls' theory of justice, which is a very famous theory of justice, we know, has enriched the already existing idea of justice in liberalism. So we will first try to understand what John Rawls' idea of justice is, and then we will see that how it impacted the already existing understanding of justice in liberalism, or did it make any departure from the prevailing ideas, practices, and did it help liberalism to shape its institution and policies in a better way? What was it all about? All right, so John Rawls is a very famous political philosopher of 20th century, and American. He's an American political philosopher. And interestingly, John Rawls' book, The Theory of Justice, came in 1971. This was the time when political philosophy was under heavy attack from behavioralism, and the behavioral thinkers, they were of the view that this is redundant, okay, and it has no place in day-to-day policy formulation, day-to-day governance. So while in the functioning of the institutions, so John Rawls' book, The Theory of Justice, A Theory of Justice, 1971, it again proved the worthiness of political philosophy, that the idea of justice or even polity cannot be separated from the moral concerns. Okay, when we try to understand John Rawls' conception of theory of justice, and he established the tradition of political philosophy once again, we'll have to go back to the case of classical liberalism, which was promoted by John Locke and others, and which took shape after the writings of Jeremy Bentham. You all would be aware utilitarianism. Okay, under this, when it came to decide upon the functioning of an institution, okay, impact or decision on a policy, the core principle was maximum benefit to the maximum number. Okay. Okay, which is of course like very debatable. Like if a policy or action of a government is inimical to a particular section of society or to a minority, but it is benefiting the large majority or large number of people, then it should like be yes. So that was the yardstick through which the functioning of the institutions were judged. Okay. Now what Rawls said, he gave the principle of maximin, that is maximizing the minimum. Okay, we'll go in the details of this, but here I'm trying to create the contrast between what utilitarianism tried to propound and what Rawls proposed. Okay, maximizing the minimum. So his okay. Okay, coming back to the concept of justice. Okay, in political theory, justice is defined as something, okay, which runs through the idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Okay. So it is through upholding these political values that we try to create a just social political order, okay, in which different sections of society can live in a healthy and happy way in complete harmony. Okay, that means a society is just. Here it is not something, right or wrong, okay, as it is something related to philosophy, particularly moral philosophy. So we need to understand some differences and good and bad, okay, between what is right and what is wrong. So here we can say this is right and this is wrong. Of understanding values. So something which is wrong cannot be right and something that is right cannot be wrong. But justice is not like this. The concept of justice, since early political thinking in Greek and all, had been highly subjective and debatable. Okay, it is something like good and bad. So at one end of it is good, and on other, and it is under this understanding that Rawls' description, like the idea of justice and the theory that he propounded, becomes important. Okay, that there it is a continuum. We cannot simply say go by the idea of utilitarianism, where a policy is good if it is benefiting the maximum number, and we can say that it is absolutely okay. Okay, here the subjectivity needs to be included. Okay, now we'll start the theory of justice that we need to write comprehensively in this question, in the answer of this question, as it is of 20 marks. So something close to 250 words approx we need to write, and we'll start with the Rawls idea of justice, which is very famous. You all would have heard the term the veil of ignorance. Okay, but before starting it, we will try to understand the John Rawls idea of justice in a holistic way. That we need to summarize here that what his idea of justice is domestically and internationalism or international justice. So, and these two vary, okay, in terms of their content, understanding and deliberation. Domestic justice, okay, and international justice. All right, so he has made certain assumptions, like he is a 20th century political thinker, and his time is marked with the existence of diverse social group cohabiting in a nation. Okay, so he tried to establish cohesiveness. He was more concerned about stability and legitimacy of the social order, of the political order in the country, than towards bringing in economic equality. So this point we need to clearly understand. Though he termed his theory of justice as fairness. Justice as fairness. But here his focus was more on basic liberties. And less on reducing economic inequalities. Okay, so we will have to trace the evolution or completion of John Rawls' idea of justice through his three important books that he has written. The first book that he wrote was a theory of justice. In 1971. Then the second book that he wrote was Political Liberalism. In 1993. Then the third book, The Laws of Peoples, in 1999. And surprisingly, not surprisingly, but interestingly, like what he started as justice as fairness, in which he tried to establish something called liberal egalitarianism. In this book, okay, where he spoke about basic liberties like freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of profession, etc., which he and we all understand that is important, okay, for the growth and fulfillment of a person's aspiration and living one's life fully. Okay. However, in his subsequent writings, he veered away from the idea of egalitarianism, particularly in the economic sense. Okay. Then basic liberties, he said. The next concept of his idea of justice was difference principle. So there are two parts of difference principle. The first is fairness in equality of opportunity, and the second is any kind of inequality is difference principle. The second is the typical difference principle, which he says that any kind of inequality can only be permitted if it benefits the least advantaged ones. So perfectly suited to the idea of liberal egalitarianism.